can start. Still some people dropping in. Welcome everybody. My name is Bart Hageman. I'm one of the employees and workers in Green Destinations, responsible for one thing, the Top 100 competition, but also working for the ACP, so the Awards and Certification Program. I already had like an amazing 2 days here in Montpellier. Love seeing the city, but especially also interacting with many of you on well, sharing ideas, especially because my background in Green Destinations, on the top 100 stories, where we can well, see great examples of stories that are being disseminated all over the world on sustainability. And I especially like this morning's keynote speaker, Xavier Font. Really got inspired by it and already started discussing with some of you in this room on his points, which are very relevant at the moment. I think most of us who are here are working with small, medium enterprises. And as such, also this panel is very relevant to that topic on how to drive that transformation and make sure those small, medium enterprises and smaller destinations can move forward with their sustainability efforts. I think we can start. I'll give a short explanation about the panel first. We were looking beyond sustainability to explore deeper transformation in tourism, driven by people and place. Our speakers will share initiatives from around the world that show how inclusive storytelling, behavioral insight, strategic planning, community empowerment, and gender equity can reshape tourism. Together, these examples demonstrate how we can move from obligation to aspiration, co-creating a tourism future that is regenerative, inclusive, and rooted in local realities. I will go straight away with my first speaker, my first panelist, Trevor Benson. We already met a few times this weekend. Trevor is managing partner of Bennekin in Canada, Ottawa. And he will introduce flourishing in tourism, a strategic planning approach developed in Canada. He will show how his model helps destinations balance purpose and practically through future-fit strategies. And his talk will share tools for rethinking business models, engaging stakeholders, and telling stronger stories. So Trevor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It was an interesting first talk, certainly left us with a lot of questions, I'm sure. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you to Green Destinations organizing this important event, and thank you to Destination Occitanie and Montpellier for hosting us in this amazing city. What I would like to share with you today is more of a perspective on the potential for people in place to advance sustainability and ultimately regeneration within our sector. But I will focus my comments on the importance of designing fully integrated and flourishing business models, which I feel are needed to facilitate true transformation. To start, I would like to suggest that all tourism proponents, including public, private, and non-for-profit organizations, can and should situate what it is that they do within broader contexts that account for their relationships with others and their impact on the places that they call home and the world at large. I would also like to suggest that by doing so, they will increase their chances of flourishing in the future. And I'm going to share why I feel this way by referencing our work in Canada to explore alternative solutions to strategic planning in the travel and tourism sector. As part of the process, I'm going to advocate for a move from forecasting to backcasting. So let's start with the situation. Everything in our world is changing and the effects are being felt within and beyond travel and tourism. In Canada, this includes the exponential increase we are seeing in wildfires across the country and other extreme weather events, such as the regular tornadoes we are now getting in my home province of Ontario. It also includes our changing geopolitical landscape, our strained relationship with our southern neighbor, and perturbations to our economy that we could never have predicted. These ongoing system shocks make it extremely difficult to plan days and months ahead, yet alone years. Our proposed solution was to engage in systems thinking and focus on farther futures. Futures that are based on setting inspiring visions and bringing these into fruition by co-creating value with others. Of course, in our strategic planning practice, we knew this would be going against the grain by challenging traditional methods and asking decision makers at tourism businesses and destination organizations to put problem solving on hold and engage in appreciative inquiry. In the words of Bill George, professor of management practice at Harvard Business School, we wanted to invite our peers, client partners, and other partners to move from VUCA to VUCA 2.0. That is, from volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity towards vision, understanding, courage, and adaptability. To stop being so responsive to the present, where groupthink, hyperreactivity, and siloed thinking exist, where the whole system is rarely accounted for, and change and innovation are often approached with trepidation. We wanted to encourage the pursuit of flourishing futures, noting that the language of flourishing is being used here intentionally because it is what positive psychologists use to describe the highest level of human potential and the highest level of human experience. In the words of Professor John Ehrenfeld and our friend Michelle Holliday, what stronger purpose can we have as a tourism business or organization than creating the possibility for human and all other life to flourish on our planet for generations to come, enhancing the integrity, beauty, and regenerative capacity of living communities. This, of course, requires us to understand and situate the business of tourism within three contexts, including the environment, society, and the economy. And it is important here to recognize that the economy is wholly nested in with society, which is wholly nested within the environment. The foundational context, the environment, refers to the physical, chemical, and biological elements that human society and all human institutions are completely dependent upon. It is the basic context that enables the others, which makes total sense because without the ability to grow food, breathe clean air, and access clean water, there'd be no tourism, and we'd all be out of business. The second context, society, relates to the social and technological aspects that contribute to the creation and growth of human society. All humans are part of societies that are comprised of cultures, institutions, and other groups. The third context is economy, which is created by society to help us meet our needs, individually and collectively, through the exchange and trade. Importantly, tourism exists in all three contexts at the same time, influencing what happens in each context and in turn being influenced by each context. This is why all three need to be intrinsic parts of every tourism business model. In addition to these contexts, we need to be able to ask ourselves necessary and sufficient questions that will expose us to all material risks and all material opportunities. These can be grouped into four crucial perspectives. The first perspective is people, which refers to who is impacted by our organization, their needs, whether we consider them to be co-creators, and what types of relationships we have with them. The value perspective describes what our organization co-creates or destroys with its co-creators, now and in the future. Process looks at the how and where of our organization, including the tangible and intangible resources we need and what activities or processes we undertake. And finally, outcomes describes how we define and measure success economically, socially, and environmentally in relation to the purpose or why of our organization. Combine these contexts and perspectives along with the 17 related questions or areas that you see here make up the Flourishing Business Canvas, a strategy development, innovation management, and storytelling tool. Once you're familiar with this canvas, you'll be able to design a far future business model for your organization that depicts the diversity of your co-creators, the value that you co-create with them, and the partnerships you envision needing to deliver on the outcomes you want to produce through strategic collaboration. You'll also be able to create a baseline to compare it to before using it to plan how you're going to bridge the gap between the two. In the end, you'll have developed important visual references that will enable you to create and share stories with your co-creators around your purpose, vision, and why, where you're going in the future and how you're going to get there. What I've just briefly described is the Flourishing Enterprise Strategy Design Method, which is adapted from Natural Steps ABCD methodology of backcasting against principles. With much support from Anthony Upward, the architect of the Flourishing Business Canvas, we tested this method within the Canadian tourism sector. This began with introducing it to and self-testing with our Industry Tourism Association of Canada. And we did this through a project to develop their international business development strategy. From here, in collaboration with the association, we tested the use of the Flourishing Business Canvas and backcasting methodology with destination organizations and businesses across Canada, from the East Coast across through to the West Coast. And to do this, we used in-person workshops and facilitated processes, respectively. Learnings from the piloting phase informed changes to the method, which we have now partnered on with the Tourism Industry Association of Canada in a social enterprise program that we call Flourishing in Tourism. Our shared goal is to bring the solution to as many Canadian tourism businesses and destination organizations as we can, knowing that if we do our job, they will have developed their capacity to design and implement strongly sustainable business models without our help in the future. This takes me to our next steps, which is this really, building awareness around flourishing in tourism, sharing with you, encouraging early adoption, and having conversations around how to plan differently. In our experience and the experience of those who participated in the pilot and the program, the discussions had as part of the process are as important and as valuable as the outputs produced. As such, we are keen to encourage all tourism businesses and organizations to explore what flourishing looks like for them, and then work backwards from these inspiring visions to identify the changes and innovations that need to be implemented now to get closer to their flourishing futures. I should mention that everything that I've shared about the Flourishing Business Canvas is available to you within a Creative Commons license. It's not proprietary to us. It's simply a tool to build your capacity to pursue flourishing futures and tell great stories as part of the process. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. And of course, I at least am very curious about this process and more really the practical example of this. But I will ask that later on during the panel discussion. Okay, we'll go onwards to our next speaker, Ryan Tim. Ryan is the founder and director of Lantern from the United Kingdom. He will explore how storytelling can shift sustainable travel from a duty to an aspiration. He will present behavioral insights such as a nudge theory and positive framing. His case study with the European Travel Commission will show how new messaging strategies inspire travelers to act. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Bart. Oh, this is loud. Yeah, thanks very much for joining the session today. I promise you that my talk today is all about the power of positive messaging to drive behavior change. But before we get on to the positives, I just want to touch on some of the negatives that we face as an industry. Now, as you're all very aware, we're at quite a critical moment over tourism, overcrowding, environmental damage, protests. These sort of stories are hitting the headlines more than ever before, and our industry is under pressure and under the microscope more than ever before as well. And the difficulty is really that the number of people who can afford to travel is rising relentlessly. Things like recessions didn't stop it, COVID barely slowed it. More and more people can afford to travel, and they are doing it more often. So the real question, really, if we've got more and more people coming, is how do we get them to travel more responsibly? And there are essentially two main levers that we can pull. So one you'll be familiar with is in-destination management. So it's things like managing visitor flows or capping visitor numbers or introducing tourist taxes. And these things are really important, but they only solve part of the problem. The other lever, and the one that I want to focus on today, is education and communication. So if we've got more and more people coming, how do we nudge their behavior in the right direction to be the kind of travelers that we want to welcome? I think the trouble is that the messages that we've been sending to people for a long time have been perhaps a bit outdated, a bit confused, and also a bit negative. And the reason for this is, I think the word, as we've heard already this morning, the word sustainable, I think, has lost all sense of meaning. So it's this complicated catch-all. It means different things to lots of different people. It's filled with jargon. It's associated with greenwashing, with negative media attention. And the reality of that is that it means 70% of travelers themselves don't even know where to begin on this stuff. They don't even know where to start when it comes to being a sustainable traveler. And then I think outdated, because I think the behaviors that we've been nudging for a while now are kind of out of step with reality. So the number one thing that travelers report doing to travel sustainably is turning off the light switch in their hotel room. And only about 76% of people actually do that. So we are a long way from the kind of behaviors that we want to push for in our travelers. And conversely with that, as little as 13% of people see something like traveling to a lesser known destination or off the beaten path as an example of a sustainable choice or a sustainable action. So we're a long way, I think, from the kind of behaviors that we want to be pushing. And then thirdly, negative, because I think our industry and the media increasingly paints the traveller as the problem rather than being part of the solution. And when you add to that a political landscape which is promoting an increasingly anti-green agenda, you get headlines like this, which we've seen recently in the UK. The kind of the rhetoric around sustainable travel is negative ultimately, and that makes things a real challenge for travellers. So if this is all the case, if the messaging is kind of confused, outdated, and negative, what are the solutions to this kind of communication? And I think we have to start by thinking what's in it for the traveller. I think for a long time we've talked about what's in it for the planet or what's in it for local people, but we've never really stopped to say to people, when it comes to sustainable travel or responsible travel, what's actually in it for the end traveller? And I think this is crucial because I think travellers typically are maxed out, they're stressed, they usually travel to escape, and ultimately as well, they're selfish. And that's not me being mean, that's just human nature. People want to know when it comes to this sort of stuff, what's in it for them. So what's the solution to this? Well, I think there are kind of three main changes that we need to make in our communication. One is, I think, when we're talking to travellers, we need to move away from the term sustainable and focus on responsible. As I say, sustainable has lost this sense of meaning. Responsible is something that's personal, it's actionable, it's easier for people to understand what that word means. Secondly, I think we need to move from in-destination advice being the sole kind of behaviour nudges that we're focusing on, so things like reusing hotel room towels or turning off light switches, to behaviours that happen before the point of booking. So getting people to travel off-season or to a lesser-known destination, that is a decision that needs to be made and actioned before the point of even booking, let alone after arrival. And then thirdly, I think the big one here really for me and something I'm really passionate about is moving the conversation away from one of obligation to aspiration. So how do we tell the world that actually sustainable travel or responsible travel is actually a benefit rather than a burden, and it's a kind of desirable activity rather than just being a duty? And it's this approach that we've taken recently on a campaign for the European Travel Commission and its consumer brand, Visit Europe. So we've worked with them to develop a 10-year messaging strategy, basically, to focus on the way in which responsible travel is targeted to international audiences so that we get better behavior in people that are coming to the continent. And to give you some idea of the scale of the problem here in Europe, Europe is the second smallest continent on Earth. It's the most visited region on the planet. It welcomes half the world's tourists, so about 700 million people a year. But 1 in 3 stays happen in July and August alone. And in some destinations, you have tourists outnumbering locals 1,600 to 1. So we have this really large scale, really limited spread. And the focus of this messaging is designed to get people to kind of think about that and to move towards better behaviors. And the key insight that we focused on as part of this sort of messaging framework was the fact that responsible travel can actually elevate your stay in ways you'd never imagined. So the narrative has for so long been negative. Actually, we want to show people what the benefits are. So you might have fewer crowds, richer experiences. In many cases, it might actually be a more affordable option if you're visiting out of season or to a lesser known destination. And these are the kind of messages that we need to be sending to people. So if you think about it, actually, this kind of travel, rather than being a burden, it's actually something of an unexpected upgrade. And from there, the concept for this campaign was born: travel responsibly, unlock an unexpected upgrade. And we worked with the 35 DMOs that are part of the European Travel Commission to focus on 4 key behaviour changes that we wanted to address. So travelling off-season, getting people to visit in the shoulder season. Going off-beat, so lesser-known destinations. Travelling green, so using public transport or going by bike or by foot, for example. And love local, so spending your money in local independent businesses, something we've heard a lot about this morning. And then from a creative perspective, we've used the language of the exclusive experience and the upgraded experience, really, to talk about the kind of things you can expect if you take the responsible route. So it might be getting a front row seat at sunset rather than being squashed into the crowds in Santorini, for example, if you go to a lesser-known destination, or a backstage pass to continental culture because you've gone to somewhere off-season, or you're fast-tracking the traffic because you're taking the bike down to the beach in Montpellier, for example. Or these exclusive views that you'll unlock if you're traveling to a lesser-known destination. So the language is all based on this idea of the upgrade and what's in it for the traveler. And then creatively and executionally, it means rather than just saying to somebody, when you're in Paris, take public transport, we talk about the fact that you can travel on the M6 metro and you unlock this remarkable view of the Eiffel Tower that opens up in front of you when you cross the River Seine. So it's not just about the kind of the demand or the duty or the obligation, it's about that aspirational element and focusing on what's in it for the traveler. Similarly, rather than just saying go off season and go off beat, we say those messages, but actually the hero headline is the fact that you can enjoy World Heritage sites without the wait list. So you're focusing again on what that benefit is to the end user and focusing on that aspirational side of this. And then again, something like, rather than just saying visit in the shoulder season, we play on the language of fall and the shoulder season. So fall for Europe, it's emotive, it's positive, there's a double meaning in there about traveling in the shoulder season. And then we reinforce those benefits. So with fewer crowds and richer experiences, elevate your stay in shoulder season. So it's all about putting the benefit to the traveler first in the priority messaging, and then it's supported by what the benefits are locally at a local level. Now, this is a 10-year campaign, so it rolled out initially in North America earlier this year. The plan is to roll it out across the rest of the world into 2026. But the early indications have been really positive, so this was seen by millions of people in North America. It had a click-through rate as a campaign 3 times higher than anything that Visit Europe has run in the past. And crucially, it's nudging the right kind of behaviors. So direct bookings as a result of the campaign peaked in the off-season, and we've seen a significant increase in the number of people who are searching for rail and bus travel as well. But crucially, and I think kind of touching on some of the points that have been made this morning, this is a messaging framework that can be used at a continental level for Visit Europe, but also for the destinations that sit below that. So the 35 NTOs within the European Travel Commission can use this positive approach in their own messaging. They can use it at a national level, they can roll it out to a regional level as well. I mean, anyone in this room can kind of take this approach if they want to, but it's just that positive framing side of things that really, really kind of sets this apart, I think. And I'll perhaps talk about this in the Q&A afterwards, but there's a really interesting research study that ETC is running over the next 10 years to kind of focus on this campaign as well, to track behavior change. So to wrap up really, I guess I started by saying how there are challenges in the way we communicate, where often this stuff is outdated, negative, and complicated, but actually with the right framing, the right nudges, the right kind of positive reinforcement, we can actually turn responsible travel from something that's seen as a burden to something that's a real benefit and a real upgrade for people. That's everything from me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. And yeah, I loved the focus on the positive and the positive communication of your work, and especially also how it linked into this morning presentation, as you already mentioned, and especially how this can benefit those small medium enterprises in those destinations who might not have a bigger of their own network to communicate, and this really helps them without them having to do extra things. So thanks a lot, and I will definitely ask you about the 10-year research you've been doing on this topic. So we go on to our next speaker, Julie Jams. Julie, she's a behavioral science designer and researcher from the Open Tourism Lab from France. Julie will present a practical framework for influencing tourist behavior towards sustainability. She will share results from the European case studies and hospitality settings, and her session will provide a ready-to-use toolkit and proven tactics to create eco-responsible visitor experiences. Thank you very much, Julie.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Donc tout d'abord, ravie d'être partie prenante de cet événement qui est Green Destination. Donc aujourd'hui, je vais aborder un sujet qui est les sciences comportementales et comment les connaissances issues de ces sciences comportementales peuvent soutenir un tourisme plus durable. Donc aujourd'hui, on le sait, hein, les infrastructures, les labels, les technologies, elles évoluent rapidement, mais il y a un pan qui est assez délaissé, c'est la compréhension des comportements humains et plus précisément des comportements des touristes. Donc en 2024, il y a plus de 40% des visiteurs qui disent vouloir payer davantage pour des hôtels plus durables, mais dans la pratique, on observe que les éco-gestes restent une minorité, en tout cas dans l'adoption. Donc ça, on peut le voir aussi à travers des chiffres. On voit que la conscience environnementale est de 87% à l'échelle européenne, l'intention d'agir est de 62%, mais les faits concrets, c'est-à-dire les éco-gestes, représentent 23%. Et ça, c'est ce qu'on appelle le green gap. C'est un petit peu fais ce que je dis, mais pas ce que je fais. C'est l'écart qu'il y a entre les intentions et les comportements. Et ça, c'est d'autant plus amplifié dans le secteur du tourisme parce qu'en vacances, les touristes ont davantage à chercher davantage de confort, plus de liberté et font moins attention, en tout cas, à leurs pratiques et notamment aux éco-gestes. Donc, nous, à Open Tourism Lab, on a voulu travailler avec cette réalité, notamment en se posant la question comment changer les comportements sans contraindre et aussi sans sacrifier l'expérience du visiteur. Donc, pour ça, justement, on s'est appuyé sur les sciences comportementales. Donc, à savoir que les sciences comportementales, ça permet de designer en fait des environnements où l'adoption des éco-gestes est facilitée. Ça va permettre aussi de les rendre plus visibles aux yeux des touristes et ça va les rendre aussi plus désirables. Donc concrètement, comment ça marche ? Plutôt que de dire en fait aux touristes ce qu'ils devraient faire, on a observé ce qu'ils font concrètement. Et ça a été permis notamment dans le cadre d'un projet européen que nous portons à Open Tourism Lab depuis presque 3 ans, qui s'appelle le projet First Mile. Donc c'est un programme COSME où nous accompagnons 80 PME touristiques où nous les accompagnons en fait à tester des tactiques comportementales intelligentes, donc on connaît sous le nom de nudge aussi, notamment pour relever plusieurs défis liés à la durabilité. Ça va être la gestion des déchets, la gestion de l'eau, de l'énergie, etc. Et donc qu'est-ce qu'on s'est rendu compte sur le terrain ? C'est que l'adoption des éco-gestes, la principale barrière n'était pas technique, mais c'est souvent des barrières psychologiques, c'est-à-dire un manque de motivation ou tout ce qui est pratique, c'est-à-dire que c'est trop compliqué ou que c'est invisible. Et ça, on l'a abordé ce matin dans la plénière introductive, qu'il y a un manque d'information. Donc pour pallier cette lacune, notre approche à OTL, c'est tout d'abord d'observer les comportements actuels, aussi venir co-créer des solutions avec les équipes, les parties prenantes, tester et mesurer aussi l'impact dans le secteur et aussi prioriser surtout l'expérience utilisateur et l'expérience visiteur. Donc concrètement, en termes de méthodologie, comment on déroule ça ? Donc on commence par des observations terrain. Donc là, l'idée, c'est de regarder les usages concrets in situ, notamment en s'immergeant dans des campings, des hôtels qui ont une problématique terrain liée à la durabilité, par exemple la gestion des déchets. Et donc nous, on va faire des interviews avec leurs touristes et les employés pour essayer de comprendre un petit peu les bloquants et ce qui peut motiver. Ensuite, on va venir analyser les profils d'utilisateurs. Donc à Open Tourism Lab, nous avons mené une recherche scientifique et nous avons aussi collecté des données ici du programme européen pour essayer d'identifier les archétypes comportementaux des touristes selon leur conscience environnementale. Et donc on a identifié 6 profils. Par exemple, l'éco-citoyen qui est idéaliste, lui, il va être fortement engagé dans les actions liées à l'environnement, il va adopter des éco-gestes au quotidien, il va avoir une conscience et une responsabilité de ses actions. Et là, d'un point de vue solution, un des leviers comportementaux qu'on peut activer, ça va être par exemple de donner davantage d'informations, venir le nourrir et d'être davantage transparent. Ça va être aussi de mettre en place des options par défaut pour rendre l'action plus facile à adopter. Et à contrario, on peut avoir aussi l'indifférent. Donc là, lui, il n'est pas du tout engagé, il n'est pas impliqué émotionnellement ni cognitivement. Et donc là, en termes de levier comportemental qu'on va devoir utiliser dans la mise en œuvre de la solution, du nudge ou tactique comportementale, ça va être de simplifier à l'excès l'adoption de l'éco-geste, ça va être de l'intégrer automatiquement dans les options et de ne pas lui demander de fournir un effort supplémentaire. Et donc, en tenant compte en fait de ces différents profils et de ces différents leviers comportementaux, nous avons créé une matrice qui permet, après un audit, de dire à celui qui nous contacte, par exemple un hôtel, dans votre clientèle, vous avez tant % d'éco-citoyens, tant % d'indifférents, etc. Ce qui va ensuite nous permettre de co-créer des solutions qui sont pleinement adaptables à l'acteur. Donc là, l'idée, c'est d'engager des petits changements dans l'environnement. Ça va être de la signalétique, des visuels, de tout ce qui est information, du petit matériel. L'idée, c'est que ça soit facile à mettre en œuvre, que ça ne vienne pas compliquer en fait, l'expérience, mais au contraire que ça l'enrichisse. Ensuite et enfin, on va venir tester et mesurer l'impact de la mise en œuvre de ces tactiques par le biais d'indicateurs à la fois quantitatifs et qualitatifs qui sont spécifiquement aussi développés par rapport aux commanditaires. Donc là, l'idée, c'est de voir est-ce que les éco-gestes ont été adoptés plus massivement, est-ce que ça a préservé la satisfaction client, et est-ce que aussi et surtout, il y a eu des bénéfices sur le plan économique et environnemental. Donc, pour vous présenter quelques cas concrets issus du programme européen First Mile, donc là, c'est une entreprise française que nous avons accompagnée, qui est Camping Les Templiers, qui avait la problématique de venir réduire la consommation d'eau au sein du camping. Donc le problème qui a été identifié, c'est que les douches prises par les visiteurs étaient beaucoup trop longues. En vacances, on a tendance, d'ailleurs nous aussi, je pense, à prendre beaucoup plus notre temps et de ne pas être très conscient sur la quantité d'eau consommée. Et ça, c'est ce qu'on a observé justement, c'est que les visiteurs n'avaient pas du tout d'idée du temps passé sous la douche. Et ils n'avaient pas non plus l'idée de c'est too much, quoi. Donc là, la solution qui a été mise en œuvre par le camping Les Templiers, ça a été d'ajouter des visuels. Ça va être de la signalétique, des stickers au niveau de la douche. Quelque chose qui est en fait très facile à implémenter, très facile à déployer. Et les résultats, c'est qu'on a obtenu moins 3 minutes de douche par personne. Ça a permis d'économiser 500 mètres cubes d'eau en une seule saison. Ça n'a pas eu d'effet négatif sur la satisfaction client et ça a forcément eu des impacts positifs sur la facture d'eau. Un dernier exemple, c'est l'hôtel Montesquieu, où là, la problématique, c'était liée au gaspillage alimentaire, notamment au buffet du matin, au petit déjeuner. Donc, ce qu'on a observé sur site, c'est que les visiteurs ont tendance à se servir, mais beaucoup trop, donc ils ont tendance à gaspiller. Et également, ils mettaient en place des pommes entières et on se rendait compte que beaucoup étaient jetées. Et donc là, la solution qui a été mise en œuvre, ça a été de couper déjà les pommes, donc faciliter un petit peu le fait de sélectionner ces fruits-là pour éviter le gaspillage derrière. On a réorganisé aussi tout le buffet et on a mis en place des messages positifs liés au fait de ne pas gaspiller l'alimentaire. Et là, en termes de résultats, on a vu que plus de 60% des pommes étaient consommées. Il y a eu moins 25% de gaspillage alimentaire et que ça a amélioré aussi la satisfaction client. Merci pour votre attention.
Merci, Julie. And actually, when I went through all the presentations this week and I came to my hotel this morning, I saw, I'm not sure if they work together with you, but in my hotel in Montpellier, they had a QR code in the shower, which I could scan, and it brought up a song, and I had to shower within that song time. I didn't manage, but I will try better next time. On to our next speaker, Yiting Chen from Taiwan. She's section chief from Northeast and Yilan Coast, National Scenic Area Headquarters. And she will share the story of Ma'ao Fishing Village and its community-led preservation efforts. She will explain how co-management and dialogue with stakeholders create the Ma'ao Story Experience Park. Her talk will show how cultural identity, ecology and tourism can be integrated through collaboration.
Hello everyone, I'm Nikki Chen from Taiwan. Taiwan is a diverse destination, including food. So we call ourselves foodie. And my name is Eating, sounds like eating. I hope it's so easier to remember. And I work as a planning section chief of Northeast and Yilan Coast National Scenic Area, headquartered under the Tourism Administration in Taiwan. And thank you for having me here today. It's my honor to share a sustainable story from a small fishing village. The village is called Ma'ao, and the story is about how the government and the community have built a community-based tourism model together. Where is Ma'ao? It's Asia, and Taiwan is over here. The place I work is in the northeastern part of Taiwan. Ma'ao is the small fishing village and located on the island's easternmost point. Ma'ao is known for old stone houses, which was built from local stones to block the strong coastal winds. And the village has strong fishing traditions, including near-shore fishing and coastal gathering. In fact, it's one of the few places in Taiwan where local female and male divers still collect marine life in intertidal zone. And many people love to buy here to enjoy the sea and fresh seafood and beautiful views. And Yana in Ma'ao. And however, in 2019, when government planned the Yard Harbor, the locals protest. The locals they afraid that it would hurt nature and their traditional fishing routes. On the other hand, with more and more visitors, the government faced the problems about infrastructure overstretch, like parking and pollution. To solve these issues, the government and the community have figured out the three solutions about conversations, co-creation, and co-management. Solution one, conversations. First, we have to rebuild trust. We rebuild trust, and we join the local volunteers and work with them and clean the village every week for 3 years. It creates trust between the government and the community, and so we can understand each other better. Solution two, co-creation. Next, we invite the locals to figure out some ideas about for tourism, and our office provides financial support. For example, the locals figure out they planned to renew the rational size for restaurant in the village, and our office provided financial support. This allowed the community can lead the change, and tourism governance from governance model shift from top down to bottom up. Our office held workshops and meetings with 94 stakeholders in the village. As a result, we found the underused land, and the government and the community planned and built multi-story experience park and a parking lot to solve the shortage of restaurant and parking. The multi-story experience park co-create, and the park integrate cultural, ecology, and tourism. Solution 3, co-management. Today, the locals manage the park, which including a cafe, public restaurants, the old stone house exhibit, and an open green space. We also trained locals to become tour guides. The local guides lead eco tours. Now the village has more tours and activities for visitors to enjoy. The Mall Park won Landscape Award in 2024. There are over 28,091 people have visited the park from September 2024 to August 2025. The community now runs 6 different tours by local people, and 3,440 visitors joined tours from January to August this year. The community increased local revenue by 1.72 million NTD, almost about 48,160 euros. Because of the revenue, the community is able to support local programs. We learned that good communication is very important. When local people were part of the plan, the results are better. Sustainable tourism is not just about money or rules. It's about people working together and caring for their home. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Yeah, especially I'm especially proud of Yilan Coast, which year on year for the last few years showing great examples of community-based tourism for the top 100 competition of green destinations. So I'm happy that they can share their story today. Okay, we move now forward to our panel discussion. So I invite all our panel members to have a seat on the table, at the table. I think we have not a microphone. So we have one microphone here, which you can share amongst yourselves once you're asked for. But before we will definitely ask questions from the crowd. If you have them, have a little bit more patience. First, I want to ask some of the questions which are already a little bit being nudged before. For Trevor, you were well given the interesting presentation on the process, and you already give a small indication that you already also have a good practical example of how you actually implemented one of those processes. Can you give that example?
Sure. Found a magic microphone as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, we had the opportunity to pilot this methodology across Canada. One of the destination organizations that we work with was in the kind of northwest coast of British Columbia, so on the west coast of Canada, the Cariboo-Chilcotin Coastal Tourism Association. And as part of the process, we invited them to envision what their future as an organization would look like. And I didn't get into too much of the detail, but it involves really creating that visualization, putting stickies on that canvas that I shared with you, and really looking at what a far future 2040 could look like. And with this organization, it was about responding to system shocks and more systemic challenges that oftentimes would be perceived as outside the remit of a destination organization. And they acted on that, and actually earlier this year, they re-engaged our company to conduct a housing study. They were really interested in the housing situation, the housing crisis in Canada, and they knew that as a destination organization they wanted to take a role and take responsibility for some form of action in their far future model. They saw themselves as playing a meaningful role in reacting to these types of system challenges. And we conducted a very loose feasibility study into solutions that destination organizations could implement in response to something like a workforce housing challenge. And in their context was very rural, remote. And we came up with about a half a dozen solutions that we pressure tested, including such things as a billeting system. So looking at underutilized capacity at guest houses and resident homes, to like in the sports area to have a billeting program where workers could stay with locals, bridge cultural gaps, build ties, and fully leverage available infrastructure and assets. So these are the types of things that are only made possible by them asking themselves, well, what does our future look like in an organization? How do we implement change or act innovatively when it comes to challenges that are oftentimes outside the jurisdiction of a destination organization?
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I think if I hear you a little bit, it seems so simple thinking about the future, or where are we in 5 years or 10 years, and anybody might have an idea, but you really need to, I wouldn't say push them, but facilitate them with a process as you described to really make it more tangible. Like, what does it really mean in 5, 10 years? And it's not one easy answer. It's putting actual results there.
Absolutely. I should also add, one of the insights we garnered through the process is a lot of destination organizations in Canada are very much handcuffed to the funding landscape, various government-based funding models. So a lot of their far futures involve them asking the question, how do we generate revenue as an industry association or a destination organization? And a lot of it pointed to more social enterprise-based models.
Thank you very much. Moving onwards, we talked a little bit about, well, you mentioned the 10-year study that you've been working on. Can you clarify a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I should caveat that I've not been involved in the study itself, but the European Travel Commission, the client, has a research department, and they have set up a study to assess the impact of behaviour change over the coming years. So they started off with a baseline study towards the end of last year, where they surveyed, I think, 3,000 people coming into Europe to see what their awareness and understanding was of the 4 behaviours that we were focusing on. They then looked at, I think, 15,000 online forums and about 20,000 press articles as well, to see what the kind of the level of awareness of these behaviours was, but really to see if there was any difference. You know, did more people see travelling off season as a significant kind of responsible action over and above, say, visiting a less-known destination or using public transport? And they carried out the research in the US and in other markets as well, like Australia, China, places like that. And they found that basically there was no one behaviour currently which is more well-known than the others. So they're going to measure the behaviour, the awareness of those behaviours over the next 10 years. So the baseline has been done now, and they effectively have an index of 0, which is kind of the starting point. And as this campaign rolls out, they can now then sort of repeat the study year on year to see what that shift in behaviour is. Now, I guess, you know, it's not, it's about a lot of factors, not just the campaign, but general awareness and the kind of the focus on these kind of messages in our industry. So, but it will be interesting to see, I think, how that shift goes over the next 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. And well, then particularly, I reckon if there's a major change about like COVID, which probably make a big mind shift for a lot of people, rethinking how they travel. So that probably you will need a even longer time to build these extra events in and actually use them also to see how you can use those results.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Julie, going onwards to you. If it's okay if I ask in English the question? Yeah. As I told you, I already had a question prepared for you, but this morning I was especially triggered by the interesting presentation from Xavier Font on his view on certification. And the examples that you presented, they show great potential, especially for small, medium businesses, not big chain hotels. He mentioned green hushing. And I think this is very relevant for your businesses you work with. How do you prevent that? Or do you need to prevent it? That small businesses, they do great stuff. They reduce water consumption. They have less food waste. But do you also let them communicate it? Or you say, well, you know, that's if they get a 9 on booking.com or 9 as a reviews number, that's more important. We don't need to communicate it. We can green hush.
Je vais répondre en français du
Oui.
coup. Peut-être en prenant l'exemple du programme européen First Mile, donc le programme COSME. Donc par rapport à cela, ce qui ressort, c'est de privilégier une communication qui est forcément transparente, donc notamment basée sur des données chiffrées et qui sont vérifiables surtout, et qui soient communiquées de manière compréhensible en fait à tous. Nous, dans la recherche, on appelle ça la capacité intégrative. Donc, globalement, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? C'est que lorsqu'on a une capacité intégrative faible sur un sujet, c'est qu'en fait, on n'est pas capable d'argumenter dessus. Et lorsqu'on a une capacité intégrative forte, c'est que là, on a une bonne connaissance du sujet et on a beaucoup d'arguments à poser sur ce dernier. Et comme on l'a vu aujourd'hui, tout ce qui relève des éco-gestes, c'est quand même quelque chose qui est peu ou mal communiqué, en tout cas aujourd'hui. Donc là, on part de presque, il faudrait partir de rien, c'est-à-dire partir du principe que les touristes ont une capacité intégrative faible. Donc en privilégiant aussi des terminologies qui soient accessibles dans une logique aussi d'inclusivité. Voilà.
Okay, merci, merci bien. So, as I understand it a little bit correctly, they're not that much reliant on the reactions of the tourists. They say they're really positive about it, most tourists, but they don't need that extra communication because the tourists themselves already are very positive about their experience at the hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, merci bien. Yiting, also as I explained again, interesting presentation on the Yilan coast in Taiwan. Yeah, and that's community-based tourism is one of my big interests. There are many examples around the world, and one of these examples, and I can imagine you also have them in the Yilan coast, is how do you keep everybody motivated after this? Well, your first year of starting up this project, everybody starts going, you have great results. How do you keep them, all the stakeholders motivated to keep going after that first year of initial success and happiness?
It's a good question, and I think it's not easy for near the community or the government, because sustainability changes keep coming up, and to deal with this, our company, our office stand up the Great Northeast Tourism Union. We invite many local communities to join it. And we also are facing issues like tourism not using the parking lot as exhibit, and like exhibited. That's why we need ongoing discussions and solutions, and we just keep going. We keep the diagram going with the local people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as you also explained a little bit, because we discussed it earlier already, that you already also have very strong governance there. So once you have a go, let's say the project's going to take 5 years, we're going to do it, then everybody commits to it. And it's also in the culture, and to say, okay, we commit, we all commit, and we go for it, and we don't give up easily, because we all signed for this 5-year commitment. Okay, thank you very much, Yiteng. Then I would now like to move to the questions from the public. Is there anybody already has a question for one of the panel members? Jana.
I have one question, Ryan, for you. In these studies that he was doing, I think it's a great campaign, and I totally love it. But still, I have one question regarding like how much the local communities and the locals were part of that discussion, because we see many times when talking to locals that they don't want to spread the season to spread out of the summer months, because then they have the city back for themselves. And also it creates many times housing problems for students, for example, who then come back to university and they don't have the place to stay and so on. So I think we are in tourism sector, and thinking about businesses needing to operate throughout the year, we always think in this direction to fill the shoulder months, but it's not always in the interest of local communities, because they're like, finally they're going home. Yeah. We have the city back for ourselves. So I think, how do you address this conflict?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. And I think, I guess the reality is that no solution is absolutely perfect. And we kind of just have to do lots of things to kind of get people moving in the right direction. So the kind of the engagement was done with the DMOs and the NTOs, basically. So the 35 members of European Travel Commission. So they were the representatives, I guess, of the communities, essentially. So, I mean, there were challenges around one of the big not problems, but one of the big discussions, I suppose, in the process of the campaign was deciding which behaviours to focus on, because there are far more than the 4 that we've gone with, and things like cruise travel, for example, or getting people to stay longer, but maybe after business trips, or encouraging people to visit more than one destination if they're coming to Europe to explore longer. Those were kind of all important ideas that were raised as well, but we thought, you know, this is at the start of the campaign. We want to focus on a small number of behaviours that we can really focus on. And then if the principle works and the idea of kind of nudging behaviour around the kind of the positive reinforcement message works, then we can expand it long term to other behaviours. But I guess to answer your question, I guess the views of communities were reflected through the NTOs who were part of the European Travel Commission.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Silent crowd. Okay. Well, of course, I've many other questions prepared myself on beforehand. And actually, it's more a question for all of you. And one of the questions is, during all the presentations, there are a lot of examples giving of partnerships, of work together with all different kinds of stakeholders to get to the end of the project, to get where you want to get going, and to get the actual results and lasting results. And it goes a little bit onwards with what I already asked Yiteng, is how do you maintain those relationships with the stakeholders? So after that first year of positive results, getting them on board and working together. How do you make sure that those relationships and are future resilient? Trevor, maybe you want to answer that one?
Sure, great question. I think maybe to start, within the context of this conversation, the language of partnerships and the canvas that I showed is very much specific to exchange of resources, some form of resources that a business or organization has access to via partnership, which is typically a formalized partnership. But we've also replaced or removed the language of stakeholders. In the Canadian context, that language has a negative connotation for our Indigenous peoples, and we've replaced it with co-creators, because ultimately what is happening is a co-creation of value, as per Eating's examples as well. So the partnership, if you will, within the co-creation setting is always active, because what a business model is doing, whether or not it's a for-profit tourism business or a destination organization, it's responding to the needs of those co-creators. So in doing so, it's an active relationship that is maintained through regular communication. So they tend not to fizzle out too much, so long as they're embedded strongly within the business model itself.
Okay, so making sure actually on beforehand that everybody knows, well, we're going to have so many check-in moments, and we plan on beforehand that we keep communication going to keep everybody on board and keep those channels open to see if everybody's still on the same path, if I'm correct.
Yeah, absolutely. In the design process, what we ask, say, a destination organization to do is to step into the shoes of one of their co-creators, say it's a visitor, or say it's a staff person or a board member, and to use an I want statement to describe the value co-creation. I want a sustainable livelihood. I want to have a meaningful experience of the destination. And by doing that, within that framing of language, the destination organization is more easily able to understand what is being co-created with that co-creator.
Okay, clear. Thank you very much. Julie?
Merci. Donc pour répondre un petit peu à cette question, pareil, je vais prendre le prisme des programmes européens. Donc comment maintenir finalement cet engagement sur du long terme? Je dirais que c'est bien en capitalisant en fait sur les projets existants. Aujourd'hui, on crée toutes et tous divers projets, on active différents leviers, mais on a tendance à les faire en silo et de ne pas les mutualiser, ce qui fait que on n'avance pas en fait. Donc nous, par exemple, dans le programme européen First Smile, ce qu'on a décidé de faire, c'est de faire un compendium, donc un livrable final, qui répertorie en fait toutes les bonnes pratiques, qui va ensuite avoir vocation en fait à être communiqué à plus large échelle, notamment à différentes PME, TPE de l'industrie touristique, pour essayer justement d'inciter à répliquer ce type de bonnes pratiques. Donc je dirais que tout l'enjeu, c'est dans la communication, dans la mutualisation, dans la collaboration, et de continuer aussi d'innover.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, my French is still a little bit rusty. It's getting better in Montpellier, and I'm happy to see. But again, communication is an important part, but also showing that results keep on innovating, not once you have started, when people are on board, it doesn't stop there. You have to keep on innovating, you have to keep moving forward, keep communicating, and keep everybody in the loop, and don't think it's you already there once you have started. So really keep everybody involved. It seems easy, but easier done, or easier said than done, but it's an obvious one, and especially I like the innovation part, like keep on innovating, keep it fresh, as I sort of translate roughly. Ryan, what do you think?
Sure, yeah. On the work that we did for the European Travel Commission, I guess the kind of the stakeholder management and the partnership process was obviously ETC has its 35 member nations, so they're used to working together and working in partnership. And then once we decided on the kind of behaviours we were going to focus on and the kind of approach we wanted to take with the campaign, there was then a smaller steering group of a smaller number of nations, about 4 or 5 nations that kind of checked in over the course of the campaign to make sure they were comfortable with how it was developing. And then once we reached the point where it was kind of ready to go to market, then again, the wider groups were brought in at that point. I think the data study that's being done is a good way to check in so that year on year we can review the impact and see where the opportunities are to push things further. But I think there's an element of what we're trying to do with this campaign that almost we want people to actually, this partnership element is one thing, but also we want people to be able to take this away themselves and use it at a national and a regional level. So we kind of, the partnership is important, but at the same time we want people to feel like actually, yeah, I can use this kit of messages and go and do this myself and not necessarily need the sort of the hand-holding all the time. But I think the big thing for me that I would like to see develop is partnerships with travel brands. So if we can get the industry more on board with this in terms of the messages that we're sending out, not just the DMOs doing it, but travel brands in the wider sector doing that. That's the kind of partnership I think that it means the message is going to be amplified and multiplied and budgets can be shared and things like that. That's kind of the ambition I would personally have for the campaign. That's more challenging, I guess, to kind of facilitate. It's ultimately down to awareness, and I guess if the results of the study are positive, more people will want to get on board with it. But yeah, we'll sort of have to see how it goes. Sort of time will tell on that, I guess.
Yeah, so once you've shown the result from the, I would say, earlier adopters or the persons or the organizations who were involved in the beginning, it will grow further. And I like what you said, is that you let the different stakeholders or who were there in the beginning grow. So it's not static. They will grow, and eventually you want to give them responsibility and let their responsibility grow, so they take more ownership, I would guess, of where they're in, and even become ambassadors maybe of the process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and go from a sort of continental to national to regional level. That would be the ideal, and then you've got real consistency across the industry.
Okay, thank you very much. Yiting, what do you think? What's your opinion on this?
In this case, in Mao, we have an agreement with local people for 5 years, and to let the local manage the park. And in our cycling area, we have almost 25 to 13 around the public space or building, and the government and the community are partnered, and so we doing the agreement about 3 years or to 5 years. Many space, every space do this, so we can keep going with the local people. If the local people have some problems, they can. We would discuss with them together and to figure out some solution.
Thank you. So a little bit of elaborating what you mentioned already earlier. Strong commitment in the beginning, but also keeping as an organization, as leading organization, ears open, and the open channels and the possibility for people to react and to take them seriously, that their grievances or things that are going really good are taken into account. Thank you. In the meantime, I'm just checking in with the crowd. Are there any questions? Yeah, Monique.
Yes, I noticed that there are 2 projects. It's like a public project for 10 years and some years, and then it seems like you are not like observation, tourism behavior. But when you are doing the project, do you encourage your businesses or the locals to do some measurement, or only your project do the measurement? Because we know that all the behavior change we have to prove by the measurement. So, for example, the waste or the water, if the business, they do their measurement already, or you have a system to encourage them to do the long-term management system.
So some sort of third-party credibility that you're sure that the measurements are correct and everybody follows the same standard in measuring?
Done by the business. I mean,
Yeah.
the measurement not done by the project manager, but done by the business or the
business itself.
locals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's indeed an interesting point as well, that if they do everything themselves, it gives ownership to that business of their results and how they measure it, and they see it with their own eyes, and will install better ownership of their business and their results and sustainability efforts. Probably I'll give the microphone to Julie. She knows the best on this subject, I think.
Donc, si j'ai bien compris votre question, vous dites qu'il faut mettre en place des mesures à long terme pour encourager durablement l'adoption des éco-gestes.
Oui, c'est qui fait la mesure? C'est l'organisation ou l'hôtel même?
Je dirais il faut que ce soit une collaboration, il faut que ce soit justement une communication de la part de différentes parties prenantes, parce que si effectivement à l'échelle de l'organisation, ils décident de mettre en place des mesures, là les effets vont être très limités en fait à la mise en œuvre, là où in situ est déployée la solution pour encourager justement l'adoption de ces éco-gestes. Donc si à terme, et au niveau de la déplétion des ressources et de l'urgence aujourd'hui climatique, si on veut donner un gros coup et un gros choc justement pour aller et tendre vers ce tourisme durable, là je pense qu'il faut aussi au niveau des gouvernements, des politiques publiques, initier un certain nombre de mesures qui ensuite, dans une logique descendante, vont s'appliquer aux organisations et puis aux consommateurs, aux touristes, aux employés, etc.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, you say, well, it's not one person measuring it, it's a collaborative effort. The local government, the organization, but also the business itself. So, and that can, of course, bring a challenge, but it is, I think that's the effort and the challenge to organize that collaborative effort in measuring all these impacts, if I'm correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. It's good, really good for my French to do this with everybody watching as well. So, thank you. Any other questions?
Hello, I'm Athanasios Kalogeras. I come from Athena Research Center in Greece. We are an ICT research center. And I would like to ask a question about nudging, because we saw some use cases of simple nudges, like putting an hourglass in the shower or slicing apples, etc. And I would like to ask whether there are some comparison with ICT tools that could somehow help change behavior of tourists, and how they compare, let's say, these more complex solutions to such simple interventions that somebody can do, if there is such a comparison as a guideline for SMEs in the field.
Maybe Ryan is or want to answer that one on the nudges.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I can answer the question directly, but one thing I would recommend is there is an online kind of library, if you like, of green nudges available. I'm not quite sure on the name of the company that does it, but if you go to green-nudges.com, they have a whole host of different examples of nudging in communication from tourism, but also other industries as well. There's a lot of research that backs up each of the studies. So there's examples of what the challenge was, the solution, and the kind of the results of any campaigns that have run. And I think that's always really helpful at kind of guiding nudge behavior. So from a communications point of view, I would say that's definitely worth checking out as for reference.
Does this answer your question? Maybe some of the other panel members want to chip in that one? No? Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. I think yeah, because we have a little bit more time, because we used to have a bigger panel. But the last question I want to ask you all, and it's a little bit in my background from Green Destinations, top 100 stories. Communication has been shared a lot here as an important factor in creating change. It can be in the boardroom. It can be to consumers to change their behavior, and even work with small businesses in how they can reduce or be more sustainable. And my question in this is, how big a part is storytelling of a role it plays in your work, in your project, for each of you all? So, storytelling, how do you use it, and how big a part is it?
Alors je dirais que la narration, elle est centrale, d'autant plus dans le secteur du tourisme. Aujourd'hui, tout passe par la communication, que ce soit la visibilité des offres touristiques, donner l'envie, attirer la clientèle. Donc c'est central, mais aujourd'hui je pense qu'il faut la revisiter. Ça, c'est ce qu'on met en place aussi dans un autre projet européen qui s'appelle Made for Region, où on parle en fait de résilience. Et parmi les défis identifiés, justement, il y a comment on change aujourd'hui les storytelling pour les rendre plus humains, moins marketing, un aspect marketing. Donc aujourd'hui, en fait, on a aussi beaucoup de choses à faire sur la communication. Il est vrai qu'on en parle beaucoup, comme si c'était acquis, c'est bon, on a la bonne manière de communiquer, mais en réalité, il faut toujours se réinventer, et surtout, à l'aune de l'urgence climatique, aujourd'hui, il faut savoir comment parler aux touristes, à la clientèle, pour encourager de manière effective l'adoption des éco-gestes. Parce qu'on le voit aussi sur les campagnes de sensibilisation, etc., c'est un ton quand même très culpabilisant. Et tout ce qui est exhortation aussi par la peur, ça ne fonctionne pas. Donc ça aussi, il faut aussi capitaliser sur les recherches scientifiques qui identifient par des expérimentations quelles sont les manières de communiquer, ce qui sont les plus effectives en fonction des finalités visées.
Ok, merci. Trevor?
Well, for us, storytelling is very much at the foundation of this particular solution, the Flourishing in Tourism solution and program. Whether it's for, say, a board, through the process, having them set their inspiring visions by co-creating headlines from the future and telling those stories as part of the process, or with businesses. Oftentimes, if we're doing full-day interventions or workshops, having them tell the story of their business at the very start by way of introduction, and then very much saying goodbye to the present, goodbye to that business, co-designing for a full day, using the canvas, and then ending the day by telling the story of their business in a farther future in 2035, 2040. It's a really a naturally activated thing that we experience. We oftentimes think the businesses would need some practice, but they've been so excited about the innovations, changes they've planned to chase their inspiring visions that they want to share it, and it kind of gives you goosebumps listening to them. So it's very much the process is very much a strategic planning process, but it's about building storytelling capacity and leveraging the canvas as a tool to tell meaningful stories about where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Yeah, and telling them together, creating the story together.
I think from my perspective, storytelling is my entire job, I would say. I would be out of a job without storytelling, so I'm super passionate about it. I think it impacts every part of the work that I do and the projects that I work on, and I think it's always about remembering that the audience at the end of the day, and the fact that they may be, we're all very aware of the things that I mentioned in the presentation today, like traveling off season or going to a lesser known destination, but the statistics show that as little as 13% of people know that that is the kind of thing they should be doing to be more sustainable. So it's important to always remember that we might be here collectively as an industry and people at the conference, because this is our world all the time, but actually out on the streets, people are a lot further back from that, and everything we can do whether it's storytelling, whether it's behavioral science, whether it's green nudges, all of these things just help kind of nudge people up that line from where we are today to where we want them to get to. It's just much easier for them to understand through storytelling, I think, and as I say, it could be more positive, and they kind of, it's simpler for them. They understand why it's important, what's in it for them, and I think, yeah, that's the kind of the foundation of making sure that we get these messages across.
Thank you. So low barrier. Yeah, like I said, it's simpler for them to understand. You don't need to understand the whole context of things. It sparks the imagination, and you use it as a leverage. Yeah. You think?
In Taiwan, our office joined the top 100 since 2020. So the story make our company, our office, and our country to hear and to let many different countries know Taiwan. So it is very important for me or for our office to continue to join the top 100. So because of the result and many national significant area in Taiwan, except Northeast Ireland, about Salmon Lake, Maoling, or Taichung City, and many destinations join it. And the story make our co-worker together connect and figure out next year what we want to talk to everyone. So it's very important for me or for Taiwan to join it. Yes.
Thank you. So really as a bonding source almost for the team to maybe create a shared narrative, like what we're working on, where we're going towards, and that everybody's part of that story and has a part to play. Okay. If there are any more questions, now's your time to ask. And otherwise, I would like to finish this panel. Thank you all for being on this panel. Julie, Trevor, Ryan, Yiting, and for your insight in this topic. And I wish you all to have a really great lunch. Have a great day, last day on the Green Destinations event. And hope to see you soon in any other panel or GD event. So thank you very much and have a great day.